Pay close attention. The news you are about to see is fulfilling Bible prophecy.
Welcome to another edition of YPN News, bringing you news as it relates to Bible prophecy and foretold by Yisrael Hawkins. Well, video gaming is now being classified as an addiction by the World Health Organization. China is performing military drills, and Trump's thoughts on national security are just a few of the things that we're going to cover this broadcast. But first, Cook County in Illinois is a part of a lawsuit along with 5 other counties alleging that opioid manufacturers have conducted unlawful marketing and have put profit before public health. In South Carolina, the governor there has declared a public health emergency. These moves come as the opioid overdose rates have continued to take its toll on the United States. Overdose deaths in the U.S. have increased from 20,000 in 2010 to just over 35,000 in 2016. Now, according to the National Institute on Drug Abuse, 90 Americans die every day due to opioid overdose. Every day. That's a lot.
Well, what occurs when it's discovered that there's food on the market that could pose a public health risk? It's immediately pulled off the shelves, right? Well, the Inspector General with the Department of Health and Human Services revealed that's not always the case. The Office of the Inspector General reviewed 30 voluntary recalls overseen by the FDA. Most of them were high risk. Well, they found that the FDA couldn't always ensure that firms initiated recalls promptly.
Wow. George Netter, who heads up the investigation, found that 23 of the 30 recalls that were looked at were Class 1. Now, Class 1 by definition can cause a serious, irreversible, in fact, medical condition, or potentially can cause death. Now, for example, auditors found a recall of cheese products with listeria outbreak that took place, and of course, as a result, that took 81 days, right, for that recall to actually be completed. And as a result of that, an infant died and 2 pregnant women actually lost their fetuses. Yeah, 81 days.
Well, regarding a adulterated dietary supplement that was recalled, the firm did not recall the product until 303 days after receiving a warning letter from the FDA, which means that after almost a year, that contaminated product that was still on the shelf for consumers to buy and could have created a health threat to those who used it.
Well, you think about these companies, organizations, governmental organizations that have oversight for the safety of our food really aren't pushing these issues a little more to see to it that the food and drinks that we consume are actually safe for us.
Right, in 303 days, I mean, you know how quickly you could order products and get products shipped in, but 303 days to pull them off the shelf.
Yeah, and it's surprising that those products have stayed on the shelf that long. Very old. Well, the World Health Organization is set to label video gaming as a health condition in early 2018, calling it gaming disorder. The term has been added to a 2018 draft classification of diseases and is being described as a pattern of recurrent gaming behavior both on and offline. The listing, according to the WHO, doesn't include any treatment or prevention methods, but just a clinical description of what constitutes a gaming disorder.
Well, you'd think you could just stop playing.
You'd think self-control, but apparently not.
Well, this past holiday season created record-breaking sales of over $598 billion as consumers spent more on Christmas gifts with all the disposable income they had in 2017. Now, that $598 billion was recorded between November 1st and December 24th, up $33 billion from 2016. Craig Johnson has a company called Customer Growth partners and analyzes everything retail and attributes this year's retail numbers to low unemployment and a surging stock market.
Mr. Johnson also said that the single biggest driver in holiday sales is the growth in disposable income. When income goes up, people have more money in their pockets and are ready to spend it. Now, Jeff, as far as the sale of gift cards, which people occasionally buy to give as gifts to people during the holidays, those numbers don't count until the people actually go and redeem them. So as a result, the 598 billion could go above 600 billion after a short period of time.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, since early November, Saudi Arabia has been blockading Yemen, which has plunged the war-torn country into an even greater humanitarian crisis. Now take a look at this next video and see for yourself the suffering the people of Yemen have been enduring.
We wear rubbish, we eat rubbish, and we drink from rubbish. And if anyone accuses us of lying, they can come to us and witness everything with their own eyes.
We're here looking for food. We have no work, no workplaces. That is why we work here.
Boy, that's sad.
That is terrible.
Well, Yemen is not the only place that is suffering the results of war. Globally, children have been one of the main targets in war, often used as human shields, killed, maimed, or recruited to fight. They're also raped, forced into marriages, and abduction, along with enforced enslavement. These things have become the norm in conflicts in Syria, Iraq and Yemen, to Nigeria, South Sudan, and Myanmar. Others suffer from disease and malnutrition as basic medical services are either denied, damaged, or destroyed in the fighting.
Well, Japan is beginning to build up its military, they say, to counter the threat from North Korea. They're converting a warship into an aircraft carrier, the first since World War II. Now, the carrier will be capable of hosting F-35 jets that were recently bought from the U.S. and will be used for defense purposes only according to Japan. Earlier in the month, the Japanese defense minister said that they were considering acquiring missiles that were capable of striking North Korea with a range of 500 kilometers.
Japan is also conducting a study to determine if the new jets are capable of carrying missiles with a range of 900 kilometers. Japanese law prohibits the country from possessing missiles with a range of over 300 kilometers. Now, Japan's latest moves have been criticized by China, and China said that when Japan makes moves to build up its military defenses, it causes concerns amongst its Asian neighbors and the international community. Such moves may violate Article 9 of the Japanese Constitution.
Article 9 in the Japanese Constitution prohibits the country from owning any means that can be used for warfare. But the country can have self-defense forces which can engage in conflict only in response to aggression and whose military arsenal is limited.
Well, the buildup for war is also evident in other places as well. Larry McGee has more details for us on the storm brewing over Asia, along with several other stories. Larry?
The atmosphere on the Korean Peninsula is very tense these days, and in addition now, China is conducting its own aerial drills in the West and the East China Sea. This is reportedly in response to the recent joint exercises carried out by the U.S. and its allies in the region. According to Chinese military spokesman, the drills were designed to improve combat readiness and protect national security interests. The activities included coordination between fighter jets, early warning aircraft, and surface-to-air missile forces. China has always felt like Taiwan is rightfully hers and is being kept away by force, and so for years it has been viewed by Beijing as one of the most important and sensitive matters in U.S.-China relations. Recently, the conflict was escalated after China dispatched several bombers to patrol the island nation while also issuing the threat of invasion if the small nation allowed U.S. warships to make port visits there. Washington is bound by the Taiwan Relations Act to intervene in the event of any Chinese use of force, which pretty much ensures that continued aggression against the island will provoke U.S. action. The question that analysts have is, why is Beijing attempting to push the U.S.'s buttons, and will it eventually lead to President Trump pushing a button as well? After China was implicated this week in selling oil to the DPRK in violation to international law, President Trump tweeted, "Caught red-handed," and that there will never be a friendly solution to the North Korea problem if this continues to happen. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson continues to advocate for diplomacy concerning the Korean conflict. The high-level official is defending diplomatic efforts with Pyongyang despite its immense challenges. The secretary said Americans should be encouraged by the progress that the U.S. State Department and the United States Agency for International Development have made in pushing for global peace and stability. In the featured article, the secretary went on to say that the U.S.'s peaceful pressure campaign has cut off nearly 90% of North Korea's export revenue, much of which is used to fund illegal weapons development. Secretary Tillerson believes a key component of that strategy is continued pressure on China. But the recent evidence of China still selling oil to North Korea despite prohibitions shows that one of America's strongest competitors is very far from being on a leash. The UN Security Council assembled to prohibit international port access to 4 North Korean ships believed to have transported and carried banned items outlawed in sanctions against North Korea. Diplomats conveyed on condition of anonymity that the move was initiated by the U.S., who also submitted a list of additional ships to be targeted, including ones flying the flags of Belize, China, Hong Kong, Palau, and Panama. Beijing, however, only agreed to 4. America is obviously for having its way in world politics, and it does not take very kindly to the idea of opposition. The current administration is apparently attempting to deliver on its threats to the UN for not supporting its plans in Israel. Please have a look at this.
The United States will remember this day in which it was singled out for attack in the General Assembly for the very act of exercising our right as a sovereign nation. We will remember it when we are called upon to once again make the world's largest contribution to the United Nations.
The spokesperson for the world's leading governing body had a word to speak on the matter as well. Pope Francis used his December address to once again call for a 2-state solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. The Vatican's call came just days after the UN denounced the U.S.'s position on Jerusalem, with the pontiff reportedly praying for the peace of the city. The Vatican's support for a 2-state solution is said to trace all the way back to the United Nations partition plan for Palestine. With the recent cold spell in certain parts of the nation, the current president is throwing jabs of unbelief over the blatantly obvious issue of climate change. President Trump tweeted this week, "In the East, it could be the coldest New Year's Eve on record. Perhaps," he said, "we could use a little bit of that good old global warming that our country, but no other country, was going to pay trillions of dollars to protect against." Much to the dismay of those laboring to raise the leaders' awareness concerning the current state of the atmosphere, the president concluded by joking that everyone should bundle up. For YPN News, I'm Larry McGee. Katan Jeff, back to you.
Well, ironically, Katan, President Trump making fun of the global warming. Really, the scientists have shown that as a result of the microorganisms in the firmament there, what scientists call the global warming or the atmosphere, that is a result of bringing about this cold weather that he was talking about.
Yeah, we have extremes in both hot and
That's right.
cold, rain and drought. So, yeah.
Well, U.S. Ambassador to the UN, Nikki Haley, began 2018 with a speech sharing the United States' focus on foreign countries. She encouraged the protests going on in Iran, adamantly discouraged North Korea from becoming a nuclear state, and told of aid being withheld from Pakistan, among other things. Let's hear what she had to say.
All these brigades have come out to the streets. They've come out against the leader. Political prisoners must be freed. Independence, freedom, Iranian Republic. Neither Gaza nor Lebanon, my life only for Iran. Let go of Syria, think of us. We will die, but we'll take Iran back. Don't be afraid, don't be afraid, we're all together. And in reference to the Supreme Leader, quote, feel some shame, let go of the country. Those are not my words. Those are not the words of the United States. Those are the words of the brave people of Iran. Now the Iranian dictatorship is trying to do what it always does, which is to say that the protests were designed by Iran's enemies. We all know that's complete nonsense. The demonstrations are completely spontaneous. They are virtually in every city in Iran. This is the precise picture of a long oppressed people rising up against their dictators. The international community has a role to play on this. The freedoms that are enshrined in the United Nations Charter are under attack in Iran. Dozens have already been killed. Hundreds have been arrested. If the Iranian dictatorship's history is any guide, we can expect more outrageous abuses in the days to come. The UN must speak out. In the days ahead, we will be calling for an emergency session, both here in New York and at the Human Rights Council in Geneva. We must not be silent. The people of Iran are crying out for freedom. All freedom-loving people must stand with their cause. The international community made the mistake of failing to do that in 2009. We must not make that mistake again. On a second matter, the crisis in North Korea will continue to have our attention in 2018. We finished December with our third strong sanctions resolution of last year. That was a great achievement, but there is more to do to ensure full implementation of the Security Council resolutions. As we hear reports that North Korea might be preparing for another missile test. I hope that does not happen, but if it does, we must bring even more measures to bear on the North Korean regime. The civilized world must remain united and vigilant against the rogue state's development of a nuclear arsenal. We will never accept a nuclear North Korea. There's one more item I want to mention. You have all heard that President Trump's comments made about Pakistan. The administration is withholding $255 million in assistance to Pakistan. There are clear reasons for this. Pakistan has played a double game for years. They work with us at times, and they also harbor the terrorists that attack our troops in Afghanistan. That game is not acceptable to this administration. We expect far more cooperation from Pakistan in the fight against terrorism. The President is willing to go to great lengths to stop all funding from Pakistan as they continue to harbor and support terrorism. And that brings me to my final point. The Pakistan aid issue is not connected to the vote we had with Jerusalem. It is entirely connected to Pakistan's harboring of terrorists. However, as I said in December, we won't forget the Jerusalem vote. To that end, tomorrow night we are having a reception for the countries who chose not to oppose the U.S. position. This is a great sign of U.S. friendship, and I look forward to tomorrow evening. We hope to see more of this in 2018.
Well, while some may be partying with Nikki Haley in the U.S., not everyone is smiling at Ambassador Haley's proposal for the U.S. to get involved with the protests going on in Iran. The Russian Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Ryabkov criticized it as, quote, harmful and destructive. Ryabkov also warned the U.S. not to interfere in the Islamic Republic's internal affairs. He feels sure the Iranians will work out their own difficulties.
Turkey's spokesman for the president, Ibrahim Kalin, also voiced support for Iran's stability and rejected any foreign interference due to the protests taking place there. Now, he said, "We hope that this problem will be overcome lawfully. Peace in Iran is of great importance to us."
Well, President Trump recently unveiled his national security strategy to the country for 2018. In it, he restated the White House's goal to denuclearize North Korea, which he continues to label it as a rogue regime.
Well, it may come as no surprise, Katan, but President Trump also called both China and Russia, quote, rival powers, and said they seek to challenge American influence, values, and wealth. Now, he continued, "We will attempt to build a great partnership with those and other countries, but in a manner that always protects our national interests."
Sounds like he doesn't want any of these other countries, particularly China and Russia, to hurt the American lifestyle.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Analysts have said that the president's rhetoric is in unity with national security strategies of prior administrations. His comment about China and Russia as rival powers shouldn't be a surprise to the two countries because they understand they have been in a competition with the United States for quite a while now.
As Russia and China have asserted themselves on land and in sea in their respective regions over the past few years, which is Russia and the Ukraine and China with the South China Sea, both countries can see the United States is not going to back down when it comes to defending its own interests and those of its allies.
While the Obama administration did not verbalize this idea of rival powers on the Asian continent, the Trump administration is making a point to do just that. This actually may create a greater sense of competition between the countries.
Well, what is China's national strategy right now? Well, if you ask President Xi Jinping, who just told a large group of Chinese soldiers he wants to strengthen military training and war preparedness. Listen to part of his recent speech.
向全军发布训令。
我命令全军各级要强化练兵备战鲜明导向，坚定不移把军事训练摆在战略位置，作为中心工作，抓住不放，抓出成效。要坚持领导带头，以上率下，坚持实战实训，连战连训，坚持按纲施训，从严治训。
Well, according to analysts, North Korea feels it is experiencing a time of progress, so much so that it is willing to send a delegation of athletes to Pyeongchang, South Korea, next month for the Olympic Winter Games. Talks will be held this coming week between the two countries in the demilitarized zone concerning the North's participation in the Winter Games. But the Olympics aside, when it comes to North Korea's relationship with the outside world, things look rather unstable.
We see the U.S. and its allies are applying pressure on the North through their military strength. Then there is the freeze for freeze plan proposed by the Chinese and Russians. In it, the North would agree to freeze its nuclear weapons program, and in turn, the United States and South Korea would freeze all their military exercises.
Well, that sounds great, but very unlikely to take place as neither side wants to back down. It is more likely, according to analysts, that North Korea will take it to the next level of mass producing nuclear weapons to put into operation and, of course, deployed throughout their country, as Kim Jong-un mentioned in his New Year's address. Well, neither side wants to back down.
And that's really, Katan, what the problem is that it seems like no side is willing to give in. They just won't compromise or even look to find a peaceful solution to the situation. It's just, if you don't do this, well, this is what's coming.
Yeah, well, the leaders have the mindset, and have for a very long time, that it's a competition, and only one person can be at the top. And so they're willing to knock others out of the way in their quest to reach the top. And really, as a global community, we should all be looking to work together, because there's plenty enough resources, as many researchers and global food agencies have said on the earth. There's plenty enough for everybody to have more than they need.
Right, and when leaders choose to take that route, it's really the people in those countries that suffer the most.
Right. Yeah, especially the children.
Well, if you would like to find more about these articles and many more, you can contact the House of Yahweh. When you do, don't forget to request your free Prophetic Word magazine and monthly newsletter. Here's how.
To contact the House of Yahweh, you can write them at The House of Yahweh, P.O. Box 2498, Abilene, Texas 79604. You can also call them at 1-800-613-9494, or visit them on any of their websites by going to yahweh.com, YisraelHawkins.com, or Yahweh'sBranch.com. You can also visit our website by going to YPNnews.com. You can email the House of Yahweh by going to info@yahweh.com. And for all calls outside the United States, please dial the number on your screen. And of course, don't forget the best and most up-to-date and accurate resource that will aid you in the study of your Holy Scriptures, the Yisrael Says and Ask Yisrael programs, which are free online. You can find those by going to YisraelSays.com and AskYisrael.com.
Well, don't go anywhere. Up next, a few encouraging messages from the House of Yahweh. From all of us here at YPN News, I'm Jeffrey Heimerman.
And I'm Katan Alexander.
Thanks for watching.